Welcome to the show. Today I got to sit down with Ethan Wechtaluk. He's running for Congress in Maryland, CD6 district. He's running on the Democratic ticket. I got to have a conversation with him about his vision for what he would do in the role. He's a Virginia Tech shooting survivor, father, husband. He's got several years at several government agencies, and he wants to represent Maryland CD6. More importantly, he's not APAC funded. We're going to get into the conversation with him. Now, Ethan faces a unique challenge in Maryland. He's facing a incumbent House member, somebody that's been in there for a little while, super duper backed by the establishment, as well as a former elected official for that Democratic primary seat.
Yes, running against an incumbent and a former congressman as well. So in some ways, almost two incumbents. He's acting like he's an incumbent as well.
They don't exactly have the best voting records. We'll say it like that. Ethan has plans to be different, so I wanted to have that conversation with him. Thank you for tuning in for episode 9 of DAHMMYLAND. So Ethan, tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll get into why you want to run after that.
I'm still young. I'm older. I say I'm older than I look because people always say when you're young, they always ask me like, "Am I old enough to even vote?" But I've spent 15 years as a federal consultant working directly with the federal government in the healthcare space. So I've spent some time in Medicare, Medicaid, the health insurance marketplace, ACA, kind of whatever you want to call it, a little bit of time at FBA, and then some time working at the Department of Veteran Affairs, working on healthcare there. I'm in that time, I've seen a lot, seen how broken things are. I've been a part of trying to fix things and make things better. Some of it was successes, some of it was not, but it's kind of left an impression on me, and it shapes how I view the role of government in the lives of everyday people. But then also, so much about who I am as a person is my life experience and the things that I've been through, from a kid all the way up to an adult. You are the sum total of every day in your life. And that shaped and influenced me and made me progressive. Made me, so they always ask, the joke is on social media, what radicalized you? And I don't know if there's any like one event. It's like a sum total of, events as an elder millennial of things that I've experienced over my life where I'm just like, man, government doesn't work. It does not work for young people. And we have to do something about it. And that's why I'm running.
And I was looking through your campaign website. I saw you're from Virginia, right?
Mhm.
So you're like full DMV, person.
So I actually grew up in Southwest Virginia.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. Virginia, it's fitting actually the district that I'm running in, which is like the corners of the DMV and then extends into Western Maryland. So you get this like super suburban, almost urban parts all the way into like the rural, like, rolling farm hills, of Western Maryland. And that's but that's the environment kind of I grew up. I grew up in Blacksburg, Virginia, where Virginia Tech is. My mom was a university professor. My dad worked for the local county government, and it was great. I mean, Blacksburg is this nice little town with because the university's there. It's incredibly diverse. There's great cultural scene. Obviously, Virginia Tech football. I mean, I grew up. Got to go see Michael Vick play. I was there for that era.
Nice.
Tyrod Taylor, I was in college for Tyrod, so I saw some great things that happened there. But then, from where my parents lived, in 5-10 minutes out, from their house, I was in a national forest. So I could go, you could go hunting, you could go fishing, you could go hiking. So I really got this, great experience growing up. But I also saw a lot of things the way. We were a one hospital county, right? So we relied heavily on that. And so if anything happened to that hospital, it was like 45, 50 minutes to the next closest hospital.
It's like your second generation when it comes to like working in government as well.
Yeah, my dad worked for the Department of Social Services. I give my dad a lot of credit for introducing me to government, and his father, my grandfather, because my grandfather was on the school board.
Okay.
And then my dad worked for the county government. He had a lot of friends. He was friends with the sheriff. He was friends with people on the board of supervisors. And so he would take me to meetings. He would take me to meet people. And me as the little kid, right? Like getting to meet with politicians. Like, it's like local politicians. It might as well be the president, right? Like you're a little kid. It was always so fascinating. So that's like where I got my like idea of what government, how government can work. But it was also good because my dad worked with social services. So he never hid from me the other side. I grew up privileged in a good household, but when I would go to his office, he would make sure that I would, help out and do things so I could see there are a lot of people who are less fortunate. And that was instilled in me from a very young age of like giving back to your community and being aware that, yes, I can take you out to lunch. We can go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac for lunch, but there's people who can't. And we need to be grateful for that and then do what we can to help them and take care of them. My dad passed away several years ago, so he doesn't get to see the kind of the culmination of, what he some of those lessons that he taught me and my mom taught me. But it was foundational. I was so fortunate to get taught that stuff at a very early age of what public service means and how critical it is to take care of our communities.
No, absolutely. Okay, well, that's really interesting. And so you said that your mom worked at Virginia Tech as a professor as well.
Yeah.
What did she do,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, she teaches kitchen and bath design, which seems like very niche, but it's a really obviously critically important. Everyone has kitchens, everyone has bathrooms, so she's taught that. She's got students scattered all across the country. She had a very good career in teaching that. So I had good role models
Yeah.
in hard work, and like I said, my mom. I mean, I know a lot of people don't consider university professors like teachers in the same way they think about K through 12, but my mom taught students. I mean, she's taught tens of thousands of students over the years and left a mark. That idea of taking care of people and supporting them. I mean, that's the model that I grew up in. Yeah,
Like
it's
you might be an
it's
advocate for education, in
I'm a
America.
big advocate. Yes, I am a big advocate for education and for giving, everyone deserves a fair shot. I have three daughters. Two of them are of school age. The third is 4 years old. And two of my daughters have autism. And so, I also see school system through the lens of kids with special needs and making sure they get the services that they are entitled to and deserve. And so I'm a big advocate for that every kid, regardless of, your economic background, your, whatever, whether you have a learning disability or developmental disability or whatever you bring with you to the school, every kid has the same chance. Every kid deserves to have equal opportunity to succeed. I'm a big advocate for free school breakfast and lunches. Kids need to be fed, and after school programs and better community programs to ensure that, kids with working parents, have opportunities to have someplace to go, someplace where they can continue to learn and excel. Like we have to take care of kids. Kids are our future. And it's just critically important that we protect that and invest in that. That's where and then invest in the people who take care of them. We also have to invest in the teachers. Let's not forget that because some of my daughter's teachers, man, I've chaperoned a field trip and I just had like 4 or 5 of them and I was like, I can't, I don't know how they do this every day.
Yeah,
So
me and my wife we're talking about having kids right now, but like she works in ABA therapy. Interesting, like she's
mhm.
been
Oh
an
yeah,
RP for years. She's about to
yeah,
be a BCBA soon, but like that's
nice.
not that that's her hesitation, might, but like she's like, hey, it's like I see these kids all the time, and it's just like I she feels like it's like a lot on her, like just emotionally working
Yeah.
with others, or she couldn't imagine doing it for herself. It's like and I
Yeah.
kind of understand that.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, there's a number of teachers that my daughters have had who don't have kids of their own, and I mean, the kids that they work with are their kids.
Yeah.
I would understand it, and then to spend all day taking care of everyone else's kids and to come home and to take care of. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. But yeah, we have to we don't do enough to take care of our teachers. Caregivers, people like your wife doing that work. I mean, the people who care for the most vulnerable and the most important in our country are the most undervalued, and it's a disaster. I mean, it's just, this is not me saying that, like, a doctor shouldn't get paid a high salary for their education. They should. But why does the charge nurse, or the nurse who comes in to clean up the mess or to change a person laying in a bed, or the physical therapist who comes, like, all of those people also deserve a good salary for that work? I mean, it's just a shame that
Hmm.
we have undervalued that.
I like what I'm hearing from you, overall,
Yeah.
but I'm hearing some parallels. So I just want to ask you, keep it open, of course. But where would you place yourself on the political spectrum?
That's a great question. I'll try not to like give you a 30-minute answer on my feelings on the political
It's fair,
spectrum.
it's a podcast though. You got a
Um,
little bit of time.
yeah, yeah. So I am I consider myself a leftist. I know that like some people use that term as a negative. I've tried to embrace it. I mean, I use the term democratic socialist.
Yeah.
And then every time I say that, they're like, oh, DSA, I'm like, yeah, I'm a member of DSA. I am a registered member of DSA. I don't agree with everything DSA does. I
Yeah, I'm a
don't
little
agree with,
conflicted as a member. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
A little iffy
Like
sometimes.
I've got some issues about DSA, things they've done, and other progressive organizations. I mean, Our Revolution endorsing Tom Steyer, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that one.
My
So
thing,
yeah, I
and
mean,
you
I
know
can,
what? I get it because it's like,
yeah,
okay, we feel like we have a winning ticket, which separate argument about electorability,
yeah, yeah,
separate
yeah,
argument. But
exactly.
like, I feel
Yeah,
like there was a few non-billionaires running on similar platforms. That's my only
yeah.
like, that's my biggest thing about it.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'm with you. Yeah, no, so I consider myself a leftist. I mean, but for me, I'm always careful about that because I feel like sometimes when you say that, it puts you in a box, right? Like, well, you feel certain beliefs, and then I say, member of DSA, people assume I subscribe to everything that DSA says, or I say I'm a leftist and I subscribe to everything. I mean, and I do. I share a lot of similar beliefs, but I care more. I care more about how what I believe in and what someone I'm talking to believes in than I do about where they are on a spectrum. And a part of that for me is because this my district is incredibly diverse. It's about a not quite a 50-50 split, it's about 55-45 Democratic leaning. And so I have to talk to a lot of conservatives. And, granted, some of them are MAGA, far right. There's not a whole lot of
America.
common ground. They hate me because they see, for whatever reason. Um, but there's a lot of moderate conservatives. And at the end of the day, we have a lot of common issues. They care about affordability, and homes are too expensive and rent is too expensive and groceries are too expensive and gas is too expensive. And government's not working for them, whether they don't get sick leave at their job, or they had a child, right? And childcare is too expensive and they're struggling to make ends meet to afford childcare, or and there's a lot of similar issues, right? Like it cuts across. I hear people say, well, they get what they voted for. And I think, but it's also like, so let's present them with another thing that they can vote for that's a better thing so that they'll get something that will help them. And so I try to reach across, and I don't come at them like I'm pro this, I'm pro this, I'm pro this. And I'm like, okay, you're worried about the cost of healthcare. Let's talk about ways we can fix that. And we'll have that conversation. And in the end, I'll say, and that's Medicare for all. And it's kind of like, then their eyes are open. But if I lead with Medicare for all, sometimes I lose them. So it's about having that conversation. So sometimes I just take the political spectrum, I crumple it up and throw it away, and I'm like, let's just talk about the issues,
Yeah.
um,
And to be
and
fair,
plain
I think
language.
that's where the real battle is right now.
Yeah,
Like it's not really a team thing as much as it is about tangible ideas people feel like they can act on. I agree there.
it is, and I think that's something the Republicans. If I hate what I'm about to say. If I give them 1 ounce of credit, is that they made it about issues. They talked endlessly about issues. I mean, Project 2025, they gave it to us. They had all of the issues. And the Democrats didn't care about that. Like they weren't talking about talking about maybe a few issues, but Republicans were talking about this whole spectrum of issues. And so there were a ton of moderate, independent voters who they saw them talking about issues, and then they could latch on to something that mattered to them, and then they voted for that. Now, there's still some problems with that, right? Like that simplifies it, but that's the reality. I mean,
I mean,
I
we live in America and that's what
yeah,
happened though.
there's a lot of uneducated voters, and that's why I try to educate people. Like I've been in conversations, and I've told the story before where I was talking with someone, and they were like, talking about issues in the workforce and issues with it. And I said, well, what if there was a way that, you and your coworkers could lobby for better pay and better working conditions? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was like, you can get better sick leave, better benefits, better all of this. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, and you didn't have to worry about it. I was like, that's a union. And they were taken aback. And they were like, because no one had ever explained it to them that way. No one had ever broken it down and thought, okay, this is what a union is. And so I may have, I don't know, I may have convinced the Republican that unions are a good idea and maybe they're going to go lobby for one. No one had ever taken the time to explain that to them, or no one has ever taken the time on the Democratic side to explain what universal healthcare really is, or how it really works, or how it really helps you. There are people who don't understand when universal healthcare goes away, all of your, or when universal healthcare happens, all of your post-tax spending that you have currently, you keep that money. You don't have to spend it. Like you're not spending tens of thousands, potentially dollars a year in, co-pays and meeting your out-of-pocket max. Like you keep that money. People don't think that. They think that's all going to taxes. No, it's not. You're keeping most of that. So, I think, we just have to have those conversations and kind of stop thinking of this person's a Republican, I can't reach them. This person's a Democrat, they're going to believe everything I'm going to say. And no, there are a lot of Democrats
Who are skeptical.
who are skeptical. Yeah, and like we can talk about, you can talk about Gaza. Like that's a polarizing issue, even though that it's a minority of the Democratic Party. It's a very polarizing issue, and there's even other issues. I mean, both of my opponents that I'm running against, April McLean Delaney and David Trone, neither one of them support the PRO Act. And I'll caveat that I can't remember on Delaney. I know Trone doesn't, but like David Trone's out here getting endorsements from union, and he doesn't support the PRO Act, which is a massive, benefit for unions. He's a Democrat. He's running as a progressive candidate, and he doesn't support the PRO Act. He doesn't support Medicare for all. So I think there's this like idea that Democrats are united. Yeah, like when I say this, people are like, "Are you serious?" He doesn't support either one, and he claims he's progressive. So, yeah, it's this. That's why I some of these are labels, and I'm like, let's just dispense with the labels and let's have that conversation about issues. Let's have this conversation about, how I can make your life better or what I can do for you. And sometimes I just listen. I don't talk.
Let me ask you, what's it like to run at a time like this? Because I feel like we're in a unique time in American politics where, number one, I think more people are aware of the more progressive issues. So like, I feel like if people are informed, right, they can find a candidate like you. Because, a big fan of what I've seen so far, big fan of what you've been saying so far, just being straightforward there. But like, so as far as, like what are some of the hurdles you feel like you've had to overcome that might be unique to a time like this, if there are any?
Yeah, I mean, the two biggest hurdles for any candidate running outside the establishment are name recognition and money.
Okay.
Every candidate who is not an establishment, doesn't have an establishment behind them, will tell you it's name recognition and money. You're fighting that constantly. You're fighting, David Trone is a billionaire. I mean, his pockets are unlimited. He spent $63 million to lose a Senate primary. Man will spend whatever it takes in this race. My other opponent, the incumbent, April McLean Delaney, is only worth several hundred million. So again, I say only worth several hundred million, right? So I could raise $5 million, they'll plunk in 10, 15, 20. I could raise $10 million, they'll plunk in 20, 25, right? And so like it becomes, it becomes that, they both have the support of AIPAC. So AIPAC will spend money, and AIPAC has been spending money to fuel it. So the fighting the money is the biggest thing. And the other thing is, is name recognition, because they've both served in Congress. People know the name. People understand who they are, and David Trone, he's a billionaire. He's the co-founder of Total Wine and More. So he has a name recognition. Yeah, same. That's that guy. Yeah, that's who. That's
okay. All right.
Yeah. So he has a name recognition there, and April McLean Delaney, her husband was the congressman for this district before David Trone had the seat, John Delaney, who ran for president in 2020. That didn't go well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he dropped out before the Iowa caucuses. But so I'm fighting, I'm fighting that. What I'm not fighting is a meaningful conversation on the issues or the platform. So like, sure, you saw on my website, like I cover a lot of ground. I cover a lot of topics. And some people might say I've talked about too many things, but I don't talk about it unless it's something that I can understand and something that I'm willing to have that conversation, have that dialogue about. Yeah. So to overcome it, I have to I have to be grassroots. I have to push. I have to, grind, hustle, dig, get down in the dirt and do those things. And, for me, the biggest thing has been reaching the audiences that are ignored the most. So I've spent a lot of time, targeting young voters who are incredibly disenfranchised with politics because they see moderate Dems have failed them. They see government as a whole has failed them. They don't even want to vote because they think it doesn't matter. And I'm trying to give them a reason to come out and vote, sitting here saying like, I hear you, I get you, I know it, but let's have those conversations, and trying to reach, in my community, the Latino population, because they're threatening to put a big detention facility in our community. So, working with Latino population and the Muslim population and other immigrant populations to know that you have an advocate, that I will, and I literally have stood face to face with ICE and sitting there saying like, I don't, that I'll fight for them to protect them, that I'm not, the incumbent voted for the Lake and Riley Act. I'm never going to sell you out for that. She voted to honor Charlie Kirk. No, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to sell them out because it's politically convenient for me. So, I've been showing up for
So,
those communities
so you as a
to
member
let them
of the
know.
House it sounds like you would be a fan of abolishing ICE.
Oh, 100%.
All right.
100%. It's like
All
a day
right.
one issue for me. I'll take it a step farther, Tom. I'll say abolishing DHS, because DHS as an
You know
institution,
that's controversial.
I know it is. I know it is, but I'll own it because DHS is a fear-based organization. It was created in 2002,
Mm,
November 2002. I had to look this up because I was saying 2003 and someone corrected me that I was wrong. And I said, okay, fine. November 2002.
yeah,
Gotta be correct. Everyone
you're
likes the
not wrong.
details.
You're not wrong.
So,
Yeah.
but I make the joke they're barely old enough to drink. Um, but like it's fear-based. It's always been fear-based. And as a result, there are legitimate organizations that do meaningful work like FEMA or CISA that have been destroyed by the agency. Like I saw something the other day about a contractor for CISA had their credentials leaked that gave access to like secure cloud instances in the government,
Mm.
and they were talking about like the problems because they've lost so much funding and so much staff, and like FEMA is a disaster of, I mean, to be clear, FEMA's always
I
kind
would,
of been a bit of I was gonna say anyone from New Orleans will probably tell me FEMA's
there it
never
is.
really never
Yeah.
really worked. And I agree. But like but being inside, so, and then you have this whole, immigration and enforcement agency, but because it's based off fear, I mean, look, this is what we get, right? You get immigration enforcement that's based off fear. You get immigration, like basic immigration services, driven by fear. It's not driven by, humane, rational focus on serving people. So implode the whole agency. I say put CISA in the Commerce Department with NIST, the similar work. FEMA becomes its own independent agency again, just the way Carter had established it. PSA goes over to transportation. And then we build an immigration agency that's centered on, humane treatment, that's centered on efficiency, getting people through the process quickly, respecting families, respecting dignity, so we can handle refugees and asylum cases better. And
Oh,
people
so
say, oh,
not
so you
treating
must.
the civil matter of immigration like a criminal issue. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing?
Yes, because it's a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. They're not illegals. They're undocumented immigrants, and it's a civil issue to be resolved. There's no need, like they're putting GPS trackers on people now to track them.
Yeah, it's nuts. On top of
Like that's just,
concentration camps, it's nuts still.
yeah, yeah. It's wrong. It's entirely wrong, and we have to fix that. And so, but we can't fix that by reforming it. Like it's just not going to work. You blow it up and then you start over. And that's scary to some people, but what is more scary is what we have now. That's more scary to a lot more people than just starting over and building it back. So we did it once, we can do it again. And I won't hedge on that. Like I won't. That's a day one issue. I'll put that legislation on the floor of the House to break up DHS and build a new immigration agency to center all those things.
All right, Ethan. Now I want to kind of jump back to the background, but this is for another policy related question.
Mhm.
I understand that you were at Virginia Tech in '07 when the shooting happened, right?
I was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the I've written about this and I talk about my life almost in two sections. There's before I experienced a mass shooting and then after I lived through a mass shooting. Because your whole worldview changes, everything about you. I mean, I was freshly turned, I just turned 19 years old. And to lose friends, to the trauma, the horror, everything that goes along with it. It permanently changes you. It was my first direct taste of feeling like government should do something for me, and it didn't.
Mm.
I watched the bureaucratic failures and the finger pointing that came about afterwards between this agency and that agency, and then how all of it it's just left a mark on me. And a lot of the failures about how he was even able to get the guns in the first place. So I have pretty strong views on gun control. I think the paradox that a lot of people don't understand about me is I am still pro Second Amendment
Right.
despite having lived through a mass shooting and survived it. I still believe in the Second Amendment. In part because I grew up in a rural area. Everyone had people had guns. I mean, it was normal, But everyone used them safely. Everyone used them responsibly. People had permits. People had the proper training to know what to do with them. I had a I saw that, and for that it was always like, okay, well, I still believe in responsible gun ownership, and that that's a thing. But there's a lot of problems with the system and how it's done, and so we need universal background checks. And that's not going to stop responsible gun owners from getting guns. And I know Congress has made this argument, and I love to throw this out. After the Newtown shooting, when we had all of these elementary school students who were murdered, and Congress thought, well, let's do something about it. Um, the bill for universal background checks died in part because Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa said, well, criminals aren't going to do a background check, so it's not going to work. So we should vote against it. And I thought, cool, cool. The death of children is not enough to inspire you to take any action whatsoever. And yes, there's always going to be someone who's going to try to find a way to get around these things. The goal isn't to present 100% of shootings because that's impossible. It's to try to reduce the likelihood of them
Yeah.
happening. And if we had a strong, federally run background check system that's applied, across the board, then we solved that problem, and so I believe firmly in that. Red flag laws, people who are convicted of violent crimes, domestic abuse offenders shouldn't have access to guns. Banning ghost guns, the 3D printed guns and lacking serial numbers. Gun show loophole, private sales should not be allowed. Again, everything needs to go through a check system. Um,
So
you
you're an
know,
advocate of ownership, but like regulated ownership.
Exactly. And that's why the one that people pass me on is an assault weapons ban. I am not in favor of a blanket assault weapons ban because I think permissible guns that I don't have a problem with get caught up in a traditional assault weapons ban.
Do you mind if I ask you so which guns are you talking about specifically? Like what example?
Yeah, so with assault weapons bans, you tend to get some handguns that get caught up in it just by the nature of they're viewed as semi-automatic. When people think of assault weapons, they're what they're ultimately including are anything that's semi-automatic or that could potentially be modified to be automatic. Now, that's a lot of guns, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of guns, and a lot of guns that have applications that are acceptable, for hunting or, I have no problem if someone wants to have a gun of self-defense. If they are properly trained and it's permitted and it's licensed and everything, they want to have a gun for self-defense, that's can. And that includes a lot of handguns. So, like some Glock, like, I don't know, I may not get the specific models, but like a Glock
I get you.
19, I think I've seen some of them have been caught up in certain assault weapons ban, and that's one of those popular handguns, or like, some of the SIGs and things like that.
I mean,
So
you've spoken to like being against the ghost guns, and I would assume that
yeah.
includes some of the 3D printed stuff too. So
Yes,
yeah, I
exactly.
get you.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and then it's, like things like bump stocks and high capacity magazines kind of fall under that. But yeah, I mean, for guns, to me, it's more of like, let's go case by case. When they approve, cars to be sold in America, each car has to be inspected to be approved to be sold. They do that with cell phones. They have to go through an FCC approval for make sure they meet regular. Why do we not just do the same thing with guns? Each gun is inspected, it's approved before it goes on sale, and then if it meets the criteria to be sold, then it can sold. If it doesn't meet the criteria because it's too easy to modify it to make it, automatic, then it won't be sold. And like, let's just look at a system like that rather than let's just blanket ban all of these guns because of a fear of, and a lot of, I'm not personally a fan of AR-15s, but there are guns that kind of get lumped in with AR-15s that are used for hunting. Now, an AR-15 itself is not, because it'll shred whatever you shoot.
Yeah.
That's the danger with them. But yeah, but like there's similar guns on that platform that use different calibers and different things like that that get included. I know a lot of hunters, so they'll talk about like using them to shoot varmint, like and things like that. That it's a permissible gun to shoot that for. So like yeah, I think that's where is I don't like I believe in someone's right to own a gun, and I respect that some people think like no one should own it. I believe, but like I'm not going to infringe on that. The other thing that I would say is gun buybacks. I'm not going to push a mandatory gun buyback. The way I've seen the evidence is a voluntary gun buyback, no questions asked. That you can bring it in, you can drop it off. They're not going to ask, why doesn't it have a serial number? Is it licensed? Do you have a permit for it? Whatever. You drop it off, they buy it back. And I think I've seen other countries that have done that and have seen massive success with taking guns off the streets. And like, let's do that. Just totally voluntary. Again, no questions asked. And it doesn't matter, like, I'm not hearing people criticize that.
Like a health issue. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
When they treat the public violence like it's like a like a health issue, like I said.
Yeah.
Like, I think the mayor of Baltimore, if I'm remembering this right, he's got a little bit of that in action right now, and it's working out pretty good.
Yeah.
But I
mayor of Chicago's doing the same. Yeah.
I like the parallels there for sure. Like I'm a big fan that he'd be an advocate of that.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions before this recording's done here.
No. And one of those, like, sorry, I was going to say, so one of those things about both of those mayors in Baltimore and Chicago that they've done is community focused programming, right? To like educate people on the issues with violence and, such that if there is a violent altercation, you do not necessarily you don't want to send the SWAT team out because it's a bunch of teenagers you're, fighting, or, they look at the calls that go out and maybe they send out mental health professionals, or they send out police officers who are trained not to escalate, or may not even have a gun. Maybe they just have a taser with them or something like that. But it's educating and responding to situations in the most appropriate way. And both Chicago and Baltimore are, I know there are cities with histories of violence and crime, but I have to commend both of their mayors for taking a modern, pragmatic, evidence-based approach at solving crime, and the results are showing. Like crime is down in both cities. Violent crime, not just crime, but violent crime is down in both cities. You're not seeing the shootings that you used to. And it's all because, people are able to access, mental health services, or, again, giving people the opportunity to turn in guns, or programs that help teenagers, keep them off the streets late at night and give them a place to go and do, so they don't, it seems like common sense. It really does. It's not enough places are doing it. And,
I mean, well, and I'm a big, let's see here. I'm a big, like, I am in opposition to the profit motive of everything all the time, because I do feel like that just kind of perpetuates these things. So at the end of the day, I like what I'm hearing. Treating it like a health issue as opposed to like a criminal issue. It's people making money off the criminal issue. I guess that's
100%. They 100% they're profiting off crime. I mean, the minute the police step in and start taking control, like it becomes remove the profit motive from it, and again, it's a health issue. It's a community health issue. It's a personal health issue. And when you address those underlying issues, you start to solve the problems. People start to feel better. The communities start to heal and recover, because this, you're not putting a band-aid over it and pretending that it's going to go away. I mean, you're actually treating it the way it needs to be treated. Um, and then the communities can, once the communities start to heal, they can invest in themselves, and then it just becomes cyclical. Like they just keep growing and they just keep thriving, and um, it's amazing. And yeah, because a lot of times they'll be like, "Well, we'll solve this problem by gentrifying the community," and I'm like, "That's not how it's going to work either." Like, no, leave these communities alone. Let them take care of themselves, but give them the tools, give them the funding that they need to invest in, the services that are going to help, and then we'll have so many thriving communities
Do
for
you feel
profit.
do you feel like your family background informs your perspective? Do you feel like it's been like specific life experience? Like what would you say makes you see these things differently than your average politician?
Um, all of the above to what you said.
I mean, fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Family helps. Um, yeah, my parents didn't hide the world from me. I saw the world. I mean, they didn't just like dump me out, in the streets and said figure it out either. But like, they didn't hide the world from me. And then I sought things out as I got older, and because I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand. I didn't just want to have it told to me. I needed to see it for myself, um, to know what that was like. And it's made me a better person as a result. I saw it firsthand, and more people need to just go see it.
No, and I think that's a really interesting point that you're making, though. It the idea of like American isolationism, I feel like is kind of tied into a lot of how just the society works, right? Like you look at the suburbs versus the city, you look at the urban sprawl, you look at like that push. Um, I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of that like is by design a little bit, to where we get to these outcomes where you don't necessarily have that human to human experience that you're talking about, where you're
yeah,
seeing happen in real time that maybe have a more informed perspective. So I think that's really
yeah,
valid.
yeah. I mean, and this is, I mean, a lot of people represent districts that are relatively, homogeneous. Like it's, there's not a lot of geographic or socioeconomic diversity. I have a district that very different, and so I have to see that. But it's not just urban versus rural. It's high. I mean, we have some parts of this district that are very well, I mean, there's people who, at my daughter's school, who are driving G-Wagons and Maybachs to drop their kids off at school. And then you have people that are living, on Social Security and Medicaid and SNAP benefits just to get by, working truly a minimum wage job. Like, we're not talking about like higher end, like we're talking like actual, like, 7.25 minimum wage jobs just to get by. So and then you have immigrants, and then you have, there are people, because we have some very historic towns in this district. I know some people talk to it, and their families go back 8, 9, 10, 11 generations in the communities. And then versus people who arrived here in America like 2, 3 years ago. So there's just this incredible diversity of things. And so I have to get out and see that. I can't represent those people unless I meet them, unless I talk to them, unless I understand what their needs are. And yeah, there's a lot of overlap. I mean, right now, I mean, I don't think, what scares me is we're not talking about how bad the economy is. Like, not
Mm.
enough people are having that conversation of like how precarious. I think we're in a very bad economic situation. I mean, as we're headed for a disaster.
I
Um,
wanted to ask you this too. When I
yeah,
want you to, well, I want to ask you, it's like a two-parter. Talk to me
go ahead.
about
Yeah,
the tapestry of your district. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
yeah.
what do the restaurants over there look like? What are some of those ethnic places, and how has the current economic state, like, have you seen those effects?
Yeah, we're starting to, and again, because this district, we are, so historically, the DC metropolitan area is weathers economic trends fairly well because of the federal proximity to the federal government, and federal jobs tend to be stable. I say historically because this time around it's not been the case because of Doge and Elon Musk. So many federal workers got laid off starting back to last year, and I've talked to many federal workers who still don't have jobs. And it's not just the federal workers, it's also the contractors who lost jobs as well. And so there are a lot of people out of work in the DC metropolitan area, more than I've ever seen. And I've lived here almost 16 years. I've never seen this many people out of work.
I mean,
And
so it does make sense because I understand that, as you just said too, that
yeah,
DC metro area, the Virginia area, it's a lot of government jobs concentrated.
a
So
lot. Yeah. And
I
then
can
it's like
imagine the impact with those, like you said, but also like the shutdowns, I'm sure kind of added a little bit to that.
it
Like,
did. Well, and it's the industry that built up to support it, because for every government office building or every contractor office building, there's the cafes, there's the delis, there's the
mm,
restaurants, there's the coffee shops, there's the food carts, there's all of those things that build up around them. And so when the government office building lays off, 40, or they close, like they've cut 40% of their staff, all of those, other businesses lose 40% of their customers.
mm,
And so that's what you're seeing increasingly. And those are the businesses that are traditionally and historically run by immigrants. And let me tell you, some of the best food that you will eat in DC are at office building cafes.
I bet.
Because they'll produce that like traditional fare of like sandwiches and things like that, but then they'll bring in a couple of their like ethnic dishes. Oh man, and then there's just some amazing,
I was like,
office
if you
building
know, you know,
cafes. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, you got to
trying to
find
pay
them.
Dory at the IRS building.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, all of those people are hurting now, right? And so, and then again, it cascades when they close down. Then it's their employees, or then it's custodial staffs, right? Like, if a government contractor loses a big contractor, or the government cancels the contract and they rent out a whole office space, a whole suite, and that closes down, it's the custodial staff that service it. It's the building maintenance teams. It's everything, and that's what we're starting to see in DC right now, is that ripple through,
Mm,
and you're starting to see, but what we're seeing is this like ripple effect, and we're finally, and so what we've seen is that like county and statewide agencies that are providing benefits to low income families or people who've been displaced, they're tapping out so quickly. They're running out, and we're here in May, and I think I've seen some agencies that are, their like year funding is like run running dry, and we're in May. And I think that's where I'm starting to see the warning signs, is if these, the food banks are stretched thin, and we are seeing some closures of restaurants and things like that, not, en masse that we have. I think there's this weird vibe that I've talked about it with some of my friends. It's kind of like, do we're all like, you're like, there's like this fear that Donald Trump's going to drop a nuke on Iran, and then like nothing else is going to matter. Like the whole world's just going to go to hell, and it's kind of like, why not just spend the money, right? Let's enjoy it before, because if we drop a nuke in Iran, and then Russia drops one on the Ukraine, and then China drops one on Taiwan, and then it's just as cataclysmic. And here in the DC metro area, this is like one of those like sad things, but we are, where we live, we're close enough that we wouldn't get the initial explosion, but we'd get that, wave of heat and light. So we'd be able to see the pretty light before it took us out. Um, that's what we joke about, but like,
I mean,
but it's like,
unfortunately, though, right? Like,
it's unfortunate, but like, so there's a lot of people right now who are just kind of like, let's spend the money. Let's just, it's let's just enjoy ourselves right now, because everything sucks. Even nuclear war aside, everything sucks. It's miserable. So, you know, I I can't condone that as a
I can
responsible,
appreciate realism, though.
yeah. But like,
That.
but but I know so many people who are like, I've talked to people. They're like, I took out a second credit card, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out to eat, right? Like, I'm gonna go out to eat. Why not? Like, I haven't tried this restaurant. So honestly, the restaurants are actually doing okay, because everyone's going out to eat. That will stop at some point,
Yeah, I mean, we're
and
talking about what we're a little bit into Q2 right now, so
yeah,
good sign.
I yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about late summer. I think people are like riding this high. They're gonna get into summer. We're gonna do these things and activities, and they're gonna plan that last big vacation in summer, and then and reality's gonna set in, and I think by the time probably by the time I get back to school, it's people are gonna start really hurting, and gas keeps going up and up and up, and groceries keep going up and up and up, and
I mean, and to me, it's just interesting to see, on the more federal side, like the more intense the pain points get for, just everyday citizens. It's like it seems like the tighter they get on the authoritarian moves. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay,
yeah,
now we're gonna do some voter suppression. Up,
yeah,
can't stay back. Let's go ahead and erase some black districts. It's like
yeah.
it's hard.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I've talked to a lot of people, and talking to a lot of immigrant communities. They're worried about ICE being up the polls, and I'm trying to be like, come out and vote for me. And they're like, but I don't want to go to the polls because ICE is going to be there. And I'm like, I mean, like, do I tell them no? You don't have to worry about it because ICE may very well be
They
there at
may
the
very well
polls.
be there.
So I'm like, okay, well, here's how you get a mail-in ballot so you can do it in. And they're like, are they going to be at the drop boxes? And I'm like, well, you can just put it in the mailbox too.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they're
it,
valid questions, but
they're
so I was going to
valid.
ask you, is that like
Yeah,
something that you've been really focused on? It sounds like you have been, but
yeah, yeah. I've had those. I have my own. I can set up my own. I pulled from like an open source tool of a voter platform to educate people on like, and then I've worked with some local community activist organizations who are doing, get out the vote kind of drives, and they're like non-affiliated, nonpartisan, but like helping them ensure that they have resources and tools that they need to do to go out to educate people. Like, yes, you can register, check your registration online. This is where you're supposed to vote. If you are afraid to go to the polls, you can do it this way, and helping to, reach some of those, because I think those are the most vulnerable communities. But yeah, I mean, then Maryland is a little different versus I know someone running down in Louisiana, and her whole campaign has been thrown for a total loop. And she's Lauren Jewett. She's running to take on Steve Scalise down in that, and now their primaries are rescheduled and pushed out, and she's going to get new signatures and do this, and then we're seeing it in
Louisiana. Oh
Alabama.
yeah.
Yeah, Louisiana ground
Give me a
zero for
second.
this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then Alabama and
Round
Mississippi,
zero.
trying to eliminate the districts and, things like that. I mean, this is real.
I mean, and
This
I
is
think
real time.
Tennessee, they very
Yeah.
specifically are dealing with it in Memphis, where it's like they're trying to lump in a district that's 200 miles away. And I'm just like, that's crazy, you know?
It's racist. I mean, we can call it anything but we want. It's racism.
Yeah.
It is plain and simple, and it's awful. It's that I wish in some sense that they would just own it and say what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Just say it. Don't dance around it. Just say it, because we know what it is. You and I, like, we know exactly what they're
It's
doing.
disingenuous
And
at this point. And, like, I feel like
yeah,
it's disrespectful to the intelligence of the people that vote for it at this point. Like,
it is.
y'all know what this is.
If you know exactly what you're doing, just say it. Just say it. You want to go put on your clan robes and go parade around, just go do it. Just like,
No.
don't dance around this. Like, we know it. Just do it. And the fact that they won't say it, but they're still going to try to suppress, minority votes across communities, is so disgusting. And my fear is, as someone who's running for Congress, is how I talk about this. Like, people ask me, like, well, what's your first thing that you're going to do? And I'm like, well, abolish ICE and introduce a bill for that, and Medicare for all. I'm like, but the problem is Democrats now have to try to stop some of this bleeding,
Yes.
because we are just hemorrhaging democracy right now. And there's a very real fear that I have that no matter, I mean, if let's say I win my primary, win the general election, and I get there, how much damage control, how much repair is going to have to be done before we can even have a fundamental conversation about moving forward?
Was
What
going to
is,
the room last night, and just like
yeah,
the conversation I was having was about the environment, but it's just like literally all of these changes they're making, they're gutting the EPA, they're gutting all of these agencies.
yeah.
Yes, we can just sign something and bring them back, but these are not like, oh, now the impact's gone. It's not
Yeah,
that.
I was talking to a friend last night, and he's in, the public health space, and has spent his career in the public health space, and knows a lot of other people, and has watched these public health agencies get gutted. And people who work in public health and epidemiology and immunology and all of these things at the CDC, the FDA, and for the government, they're not there for the paycheck. They're there because they care. A lot of those people who got laid off during Doge, they went to private sector and they're making a lot more money. They're not necessarily going to come back. And so we've had this. I mean, like it's like, well, why would they? And I don't blame them to come back into it. So we're gonna have, they talk about the brain drain. There's a brain drain. And then all of these programs that were shuttered, the research that was shuttered on whether it's vaccines or food safety, you can't just flip the switch and it starts right back up where you left off. It may take literal years to catch back up to where we were, just to reach the same level of investigative research and things like that. And people are not thinking about, like, Democrats are not thinking about that. They're not, their wife was talking with it. Her idea is having like a shadow government right now, that we have people all who are keeping tabs on every agency. There's someone at FDA, there's someone at FAA, there's someone at PSA, there's someone everywhere, and they're keeping track of. They're looking at the programs that are lost. They're looking at the personnel that are lost. If an entire division is cut, what division was that, and who was there, and what was the work that they did, such that when the Democrats take back in power, we know what to restore. And maybe we don't need to restore 100% of it, because sure, maybe some things didn't make sense, but we know what's lost. Because my fear right now is we are losing things and we don't even know what we've lost. And then when we try to restart it, we're going to be missing valuable programs because no one was aware of it. And the people who knew are, some of them left and went back overseas. Some of these weren't even, they were, foreign scientists, and they went home to lucrative government jobs in Europe or Asia or wherever, or private sector. They're not going to come back and help fix this. I'm not going to beg them to. I don't blame them. I know why they did what they did. So, that's my concern, is that the Democrats are just not paying attention, and the damage is, like we keep saying, we talk about like what happened overseas in Iran, and then NBC News was reporting, damage to American military bases was far worse than we estimated. Like,
I
damage to
reported
our own
on that when
government.
I saw it in, just a side
Yeah,
note, I talked about that when I saw it in foreign news.
yeah,
Everybody was like,
yeah.
nuh-uh,
Oh yeah.
nuh-uh. And then NBC, and I was like, come on, guys.
I know, right? Like,
Oh
but
my
that's the
gosh.
problem. It's happening here. Like, damage that Doge did is still, there's still,
Yeah.
we haven't hit the bottom of the damage that they did. And then it's the new things that they're doing along the way, the new, you know data links between services and all of that other stuff. Like, they're doing things like that. And it's we just have to keep track of it, otherwise we risk.
What I like
Yeah.
is that I don't feel like enough people on the Democratic side of the House right now are as realistic about this. You know what I'm
No.
saying? Like, and you have to be if we are to find any solutions.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like what you're describing, number one, I agree. Like, it's like a yes and, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's a reflection of how, like, and I don't feel like I'm the first person to say that there's a minority of people that maybe feel like that in Congress, but I don't feel like the other side is them maybe not like paying attention. I feel like, how do I say this? I don't believe this of the entire Democratic Party. Again, I believe some people are like, really trying to do the right thing, but
Yeah.
like some of them see all this authoritarianism and they're like, well, I could use that to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, that's my
you
opinion.
know
I don't know.
uh, I share that opinion. I will go so far as to name names. I think there's the Chuck Schumers of the world who see that and they salivate and sit there and think it's going to be a revenge tour. And
Yeah.
I think the problem is this is not about revenge. Any Democrat who thinks when we take back power, it's about revenge, is exactly, they're that group of people that you're talking about, because the only way you get revenge is to do exactly what they did. And there's a whole group of people who say, well, we should we can be we can fix things and be petty, and we can fix things and twist the knife back without it being revenge. It does, because it's motivated by solving the problems, but we can still have some fun around along the way and how we solve the problems and make sure that we punish the people who deserve to be punished. But if it's about extracting revenge, there's never going to be they're never going to be able to get that what they want out of it, and they're always going to be looking for more and more and more. And I think that's what you're right. I think those are the ones scratching their head like, they did this, so let's do it back to them. And that scares me because that's not what we want.
I feel like there's a lot of nuance in that conversation too, because on the one
Yeah,
hand, no, we don't want to be blue MAGA by any means. On the other hand, MAGA is as strong as it is, just from my personal perspective, off the strength of, for example, a compromised Supreme Court.
yeah,
And I do personally wish, not that we should be twisting the knife all the way back as, just like you're saying right now, but
yeah.
hey, let's maybe fight back a little bit and get a couple more justices over there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a favor of expanding the Supreme Court. Let's expand it to 13. Let's put 18-year term limits on them. They don't serve for life. Let's have an enforceable code of ethics that's administered and overseen by someone other than themselves. And this will apply to the entire federal judiciary as well. And look, I'm of the belief that we don't appoint Supreme Court justices with 50 votes. We got to undo that damage that Harry Reid did years ago. So to me, you need a 2/3 majority to approve a Supreme Court, or super majority, I guess, to approve a Supreme Court justice. Like, yeah, let's do that. Let's fix. I think for me, it's like fixing it and then codifying it. Because years ago, I don't remember which Democrat said, I don't. Maybe it was Obama who said this. Like, well, we don't need to codify Roe v. Wade because it's the law of the land. No, we do. We did need to
Here we
codify
are.
Roe v. Wade. Yeah.
Here
So
we are.
codify everything.
Yeah.
Everything will be codified and made clear. And then there's no hemming or hawing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no, well, maybe this would be like, no, it's clear. It's law. It's settled. It's passed. It's the will of the people. We're not changing this stuff. We're not leaving it open to interpretation. Because I mean, at this point where we're at is nothing than a settled precedent. Nothing. And I've heard some people say, well, but things are determined. I mean, what's to stop them from going after Brown versus Board of Education? Like, what's to stop that?
Electric
Like,
Voting Act. It's just there's nothing off
yeah,
the table.
I mean, they've overturned so many things. I mean, as what's to stop them from overturning Obergefell v. Hodges and going after gay marriage? I mean, we've done abortion, we've done the Voting Rights Act. Why not go after gay marriage? And then let's reverse segregation and let's keep going and see what else we
Well,
do.
they're
Let's
gonna
make
get this right.
child labor
I've said it.
legal.
They're
Yeah.
gonna get there. Like,
Yeah, I mean like that's the thing is like they've opened, Pandora's box with this, and unless we take serious action, and it's gonna be that way. And that's where I think like it's like fighting fire with fire. But again, it's not about revenge. It's just about, fixing it. So you have to repair the damage and then fix it so it can't happen again. I think that's the thing is like I mean, and there's no guarantees, right? None. But whatever we can do, a 13 vote, 13-person court, what other structures, I've seen people say we'll tie it to the Federal Reserve System, justice representing each, district across the United States, and then there's one chief justice. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's idea, things like that. There's so many like think outside the box, right? I'm also a favor of expanding the House, uncap the House at 435, and expand the House. There's a lot of empty office buildings in DC now that they cleared out. So there's a lot of office space because that was the argument for years. We don't have enough office space. Well, Doge took care of that. So we got a lot of empty federal buildings. Like, let's put new members of the House of Representatives in there. And, everything's on the table. Everything is on the table as far as I'm concerned. If the Republicans are going to do it, the Democrats, let's just put all our options out. Let's get rid of the bad ones and all of the good ones. I don't care what the idea is. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation.
well, for me at this point, I feel like one of the more important things we can do because, and not that I'm not on my podcast right now advocating for any kind of radical action, you guys, But what I will say is, as long as people aren't necessarily picking up like arms and pitchforks and stuff, I think voting for more progressive, more like just
Yeah.
realistic, idea focused candidates is going to be the best thing we can do. And I like
Yeah.
the ideas I'm hearing from you, Ethan, so far.
And I'm not alone. Like if someone's listening to your podcast who's not in Maryland's sixth district and they're sitting there like, I can't vote for him. There's people like me all across the country who are running and who share these, similar beliefs and perspectives. And so I'm not alone in this. And that should give people hope. And obviously, we're not all going to win. Obviously, we all want to win, but we're probably not all going to. We're being pragmatic and real. But it's got to start somewhere, And I've told people like I'm not going away. Like if I lose my primary here, in a little over a month, I'm not going to go away. I'm gonna keep fighting. I'm gonna keep pushing. And keep holding, truth to power and fighting the systems. And maybe I run again and the next cycle, or maybe I look for some other office where I think I can continue to do it. But and it's not just at the federal level. We're seeing, in Maryland for the first time, Democrats are contesting every single seat across the entire state of Maryland.
Interesting.
um and that's powerful, and it's sending a message. And I know people out in Western Maryland who are running, and they're socialists, and they're running in Western Maryland, and people are loving it, and so we're seeing a change. And they're going to continue to try to suppress that change, and the more we continue to amplify those voices and amplify these messages, the stronger it's going to be. um I try to be optimistic. There's a lot of days where it's real hard,
I
but I
get it. I
try to
mean,
be
we have to be
optimistic.
sober when we look at these things, but I think we have to
Yeah.
be optimistic when we make our plans. That's how I like to
Yeah.
do it.
So I'm a realist, and I'm aware of what's going on. I'm aware of how bad it is. I'm aware of what could be coming next. But I also know that I can't stop, because if any of that actually happens, then I need to be able to do something about it. That's why I'm running. And so I have to keep moving forward. I have to do it, for me, for my family, for my community, and when you run for Congress, you don't just represent a district, you represent a state, you represent a country. So every vote that I would cast is impacted by everyone, who's listening to your podcast. Everyone would feel the impact of my vote. And that is a responsibility that I take seriously. And so that's why I talk to anyone anywhere, and I'll have those conversations with them, because I want to know. I want to understand how people are feeling and what needs to happen, because we're seeing censorship of media, the real truth, I think, in a lot of what's going on is getting out on, podcasts like yours and on social media, because we're not seeing mainstream news necessarily tell the stories of what needs to be told. And so I just, it's power to the people. It's people deserve to have that power. We deserve to put people over profits. And that's why I'm running. I mean, that's why I'm here. Bring that power back.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, this was episode 9 of Dahmmy Land. We had Ethan. And Ethan, could you pronounce your last name? I don't want to butcher
Yeah.
it.
Wechtaluk.
Ethan Wechtaluk here. He's running
Yeah.
for House in Maryland, District 6. I had to look this up here. I'm pretty sure. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Cumberland? Or just tell me what cities you're that they can vote for you in.
Yeah, so there's it's five counties, well, 4.5 counties. So it's Allegheny County, Garrett County, Washington County. The major cities there are Cumberland and Hagerstown. And then Frederick County, the major city there is city of Frederick. It's actually one of the fastest growing cities in America right now. And then Montgomery County, which includes cities of Gaithersburg and Germantown and Clarksburg. So there's some great places. And if anyone is from there, they already know that the sixth district is a happening place. So I love it. I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. And so the primary is the 22nd of June. Am I right?
23rd.
Okay, so primary is 23rd of June.
Mm.
General is going to be the 3rd. Of course, we're hoping to see you there because we need more
Yeah.
actual left-leaning people on that
Yes.
Democratic ticket. But yeah,
Absolutely.
shout out to you, man. Anything you want to let us know before we wrap up the episode here?
You check me out on my socials. They're Ethan for MD. Like I said, I love talking to people. You can book a one-on-one with me from my website. Feel free to reach out. Don't be shy. I mean, I love the dialogue. I love the conversation, whether you're in my district or you live across the country or around the world. Please, let's talk. I love hearing about those. Hearing about, I'll just listen. We don't even talk. I'll just listen. You wanna vent to someone who's running for office, or you wanna talk, you want me to share with you what I do. I mean, reach out and let's have a conversation.
Nice, nice. Well, I appreciate your time today. And everybody, I'll see you next week.